Life Check Yourself with Lauren Elise Rogers. Break free from shame, sex, boundaries, and pleasure in midlife. Welcome back to another episode of Life Check Yourself. Today, I have a very sexy guest. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see her very sexy background. Lauren Elise Rogers is here, and she is a certified holistic sexuality educator and embodied intimacy and relationship coach. And people know her for her warm and approachable style. I mean, you will find that out. I already got it in 2 minutes. She has a holistic and embodied approach to education and coaching, and it's deeply rooted in her own pain to purpose journey. She brings an empathetic and non-judgmental approach, and she's going to offer us some practical tools to empower us to take ownership of our pleasure and grow in confidence and connection. It's a shame-free space here with Lauren. And we're going to talk about long-term partnerships, consensual non-monogamy, life transition, purity culture, and LGBTQIA+. Everything is on the table here. I'm so happy that you were able to join us today.
I am so thankful to be here, Marnie. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that I want to talk about is that for so many people who are listening, like, we were taught to be good. We were taught to get shit done. There's like almost these different parts of ourselves that we compartmentalize. And it requires kind of rewriting a lot. So for anyone who doesn't know, why don't you just start with telling us, what is a holistic sexuality educator do, and how is it different from therapy, for example?
Such a good question. And literally just got off a consult with someone explaining exactly this thing. So Let me break down. I like to say often that therapy looks backwards. Education and coaching works forwards. And so in some ways you would find a session with me or the work with me similar in that, sessions are an hour and we're talking and we're jiving and we're working through obstacles and challenges that you may be facing regarding sexuality, relationships, romance, these types of things. And yet we're going to be really goals oriented. We're going to be really tooling you up and equipping you to sexually flourish. I deeply believe that we were all born inherently sexually perfect. But like you said, we got a lot of scripts along the way about how we should be functioning as sexual beings and as romantic beings. And we all struggle to overcome and to find who we are amidst all of the narratives that are swirling around us. Some of us then did compartmentalize. We were like, well, I'll just try to fit inside of this mold. And we tried really hard, and maybe we succeeded and it was miserable. My story, we'll talk about that. Or maybe we failed, quote unquote, the system that gave us said script, and maybe we don't know where we really want to go. And so I work as a holistic sexuality educator and embodied intimacy and relationship coach to really get to the bottom of who my clients are. I work with individuals and couples and thruples and all kinds of polycules to help them build sexual values and sexual mission statements and ethics that feel good to them so that they can choose as informed individuals the types of sexual and romantic experiences they want to be involved in. So it's really the best.
I love that. Talk about juicy. That was a juicy answer. So I know one of the things that you do is you kind of talk about that you have to rewrite scripts. And I was talking about those ones that are kind of coded into us. For those of the people that are like, what is my sexual script? How does someone kind of define or identify what is their sexual script, and how do we know if it's outdated or not?
Yeah, great question. So let's do a little exercise that feel good in your body to do a little exercise together. We'll do one that,
but yes.
You don't have to reveal anything. I'll just have you kind of do this in your own mind and imagination. Yes. And then if you, at the end, you want to choose to share some themes that arose, you can share with the audience. I'm happy to self-disclose also, but I do find that it's really simple, actually, to find out the scripts and the narratives that are controlling and guiding what we do. And it's okay to look at them and go, hey, is this really the script I still want to follow? Or do I want to do a rewrite? Do
Love
I
that.
really want to close that one and write a new one? So many of us have various lived experiences, and some of them are great, and some of them are small t traumatic and big T traumatic. I was just listening to a fascinating guest that you just had on recently. You were talking about so many of these same things, right? We develop these safety seeking behaviors to stay safe at all of these different points in our lives. We also start to follow narratives and scripts. So we're just going to focus on a couple of ages here. So
okay, great.
I want you to take yourself back in time.
Okay, let's go.
Let's do it. To about age 7.
Yes.
I want you to think about your life at around 7. Who was in your life? Friends, family, where you lived in the world, teachers, religious spaces, camps, activities, all this type of stuff. Now I'm going to ask you a few fill in the blank questions that I want you to answer in your head at this moment. And listeners and viewers who are listening and viewing right now, go ahead and do this as well. If you're in your car driving, shout them out to the window. If you want to write them down, do it.
Don't close your eyes.
Do not close your eyes like Marnie is. Do not close your eyes.
Or if you're on a treadmill, because that's probably bad too.
It's really dangerous. Don't do that part. Okay. So I want you to think about, again, age 7.
Yeah.
I want you to embody your 7-year-old self. So this is not you now.
Yes.
I want you to be in your 7-year-old self. Okay. In your head, sex is fill in the blank.
Wait, am I supposed to share?
No, you can keep it silent right now. Then I want you to think relationships are fill in the blank. My job is to fill in the blank. Marriage is fill in the blank. My body belongs to fill in the blank. Relationships are fill in the blank. A girl's job is to. A boy's job is to. I want to stay safe. Okay. We're going to pause there. Now we're going to fast forward in time. I want you to take us to 14-year-old you.
Okay. 7 was hard because I was just like.
Right? A lot of maybe I don't knows. A lot of like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of I don't knows. And also just sort of like unformed.
Yes.
Basic thoughts, but very unformed. So 14 was so pivotal for me around a relationship and sex. So I can't wait.
Yay. Okay. So I want you to put yourself in 14-year-old. For those listening and viewing, same exact type of prompts, right? Who's in your life? What types of friendships do you have? What's going on in your parents' relationship and caregivers' relationship? All that kind of juicy stuff. Is there death around you? All this kind of stuff. Okay. Here we go. Sex is. Relationships are. It's my job too. I want. Boys or men are. It's a girl's job too.
This is so funny.
My body is. My pleasure is. To stay safe, All right, we'll pause there. And now we're fast forwarding on to 21.
Oh, 21. Okay, wait, I have to think about that. Where was I when I was 21? Okay.
Kind of funny, right? Some people are in university or college. Some people are working. Lots of different things happening at 21, but equally as important. Very pivotal time.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody usually goes, oh my gosh, right at 21. All right. So same types of questions. Embody your answering as 21-year-old self. Here we go. Sex is. Relationships are. My body belongs to. Men are. Women are. Marriage is. It's my role to. I want. Pleasure is to stay safe. This all feels and seen.
Love it.
So what's really fascinating, and we'll take a minute just to is sometimes some of these beliefs stay the same.
Right.
Sometimes there is an I don't know, like you said, or an ew, or what? And sometimes over times, these blanks get filled in, and sometimes they do not. Because in this culture, especially in North America, we do not have great sex ed in school. We don't have a lot of humans being great caregivers who are investing in the sexual development and relational development and romantic development of children. And so we all do the very best we can to fill in these gaps and to try to understand how we're to relate as relational and romantic beings. And yet oftentimes these scripts stay the same. Of how I stay safe, how I am chosen, how I am to show up in relationship, and what sex even is. So it is fascinating. So I'm curious if you'd like to share. Did any themes arise? What surprised you? What was like, hadn't thought about that? Yeah, what came up for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I was a kid, when I was 7 or whatever, like my parents had a good relationship. I remember them, like in our family, like we were all just naked, but it wasn't weird. I didn't feel like any shame about any of that stuff. I remember like being on a vacation and like with my brother and like we're all in the room. And I just remember being like, oh God, I hear my parents having sex, but I was probably like 10 or 12. And I was like, bless their souls or what. It was awkward, but I thought it was funny. Because I remember telling my friends, you know, being like, ew. So those are the early things. And it was like, my body belongs to me. I'm safe when my dad hugs me and all those things. But when I was 14, I started dating this guy who was older than me. And that was when like, you know, all of those like, you know, I think my body still belonged to me, but my narrative changed. Like my job is to make you happy.
Yes.
When you said 21, girl, I don't remember if it was my job is or girls are supposed to. And I thought, give really good blowjobs. I felt like that was like something you were supposed to be really good at. What's interesting is I met my ex-husband when I was like 19 and we got married when I was 22. So it was all about like, you know, women are supposed to get married, you know, and pleasure was like, not really, that wasn't in the equation, except that I was supposed to be good at, you know, giving pleasure. Right.
Yes.
So those are kind of some of the things that I noticed, you know, and if you look at my history and my story, those were the things that I had to unpack and rewind.
So Marnie is like doing the math for us here, right? This is exactly what we get to do. And so often I'll have clients come to me and they're like, am I broken? I'm like, you're not broken, right? These are just results of scripts that were formed. And what we get to do, should we choose to, is turn towards these old beliefs, old scripts with curiosity and compassion and say, what do I want to work on? Do I still align with the value system that ascribed and started writing this script for me? Or do I not? Does it no longer serve me? So I have this like sexual garden weeding analogy that some of these scripts, some of these beliefs that were planted in our metaphorical sexual gardens, we weeded a long time ago. So you even highlighted some of those, right? Like, no, it's fine. Like, this is not affecting me even more. I would call that an explicit, possibly sex negative belief that you were like, pluck, not even an issue. Great. Yes. We still label those in my work with clients because growth mindset, we look at you, right? We did this on our own before we even began this work. Then there are beliefs planted in our sexual gardens that we can look at and go, oh, I know I don't align with that anymore, but boy, does it still frustrate me. For instance, pleasure is something I provide, not pleasure is something I receive, right? I have a lot of clients who come to me and are like, I don't believe that anymore, but it feels like a dandelion that I'm trying to pull out of the ground and it's still there. So I would label that a latent sex negative, body negative, pleasure negative belief. Then there are beliefs that sometimes get planted in our bodies, usually without consent, that feel almost like soil blight, feel almost like sick soil.
Okay.
For me, I was raised in a very patriarchal, religious, misogynistic household. So there was a lot planted in my sexual garden about my body belonging to my father until I was married. A lot of this whole, my pleasure, my agency, all of this gone. A woman's role was to keep her husband happy. I mean, I just had belief after belief that were so deep in my garden, it was equated to soil blight. And why I work on this with clients is not to be doomsday. I don't believe in that. But I deeply believe that a good farmer knows that soil blight can be healed. It just takes time, attention, manure, sunlight, rest, all this good stuff. And we deserve that. I like to say that there's no rush. When things were truly planted in our sexual gardens without our consent, it is part of our reclamation and our delight to say, hey, hold on, I'm going to take as long as I need to heal this and to rewrite this script. So this becomes just really the foundation of the work I do with clients. And like you said, it is our thing we get to do. To say, no, pleasure does belong to me, but how do I get there? And that's what I work with clients on. So well done.
And I think that's really interesting because the one thing that I will say about my first marriage is that I really did learn like what pleasure is and had a partner. He was like super into all of that stuff. And I always felt so in some ways, that was one of the best things about that marriage was that it was very much like the garden was fruitful. But when I got divorced in my late 30s, because I hadn't really had any positive sex experiences, right? I was like, I need to be like, I need to sow my wild oats because I never did it with power, you know, and agency and self-worth. And so I work with a lot of clients after they get divorced and they're like late 40s, 50s, and they're like, I kind of just want to bang guys right now. And I'm like, do that thing, right? Like enjoy it, like feel sexy, like have someone desire you, like get the fire back. Which leads me to my next question because I'm not on TikTok. And so I know that you talk about like this purity culture that you grew up in. And I would say that in some ways, is this coming back like with the trad wife thing? And like, I'm so out of it. My kids are like in their, late 20s, 30s. So I don't know really what's going on, but, what is
what's
that?
happening?
Where are we right now with sex?
Yeah. I think anyone who studies history sees how what goes around comes around, that things repeat themselves. And I think when you study sexuality in school, like I did, you also see these themes reappear, right? After the, free love, free sex movement, this whole thing, we saw the swing in the 80s and 90s, which is what I came out of, which is this true love waits and these big rallies on the White House lawn. And this is where the first purity culture movement is what we label it, came out of. And so then you saw this swing in another direction. And so now you're seeing the swing back. So I wouldn't say that this is shocking. When we first saw purity culture appear in our United States of America, it was when white mothers were watching immigrants come to this country and they didn't want their white boys marrying immigrants. So again, it has yucky origins, but yes, nothing new happens under the sun, right? And what I am saying is so many people feeling lost, feeling a lack of belonging, feeling this lack of purpose and alignment with what they are to do with the sexual relational body. I'm seeing it come out of especially the men who are ascribing to this trad wife movement, feeling that in this rise of feminism, in this rise of women coming into their agency and ownership, they don't know what to do with themselves.
Right.
I've also listened to some fascinating lectures about this idea of these men coming out of a pandemic didn't necessarily do a lot of self-work, and who did a lot of self-work in pandemics women. And so
Right.
what we're seeing is, again, how do I assert myself? And I understand that. We all long for belonging and these tools for relational connection. And so what do? You named it so well at the beginning. We start to compartmentalize ourselves. We start to choose a mold, and we're hungry for someone to give us something. And it feels like belonging. As someone who was raised inside of, again, that purity culture, we're seeing a resurgence of folks like this Doug Wilson guy, which is exactly the man, Marnie, who established the principles that my family followed. And it has been wild and weird to see his church from Idaho having this resurgence and this growth. It's like a nightmare coming back to the surface. And yet he is gaining fast popularity.
Oh my God. He must be old by now, Doug.
He's in his 60s. Yeah, 60s, 70s.
Not that old.
Yeah, it's not that old.
So he started
really
young.
He did. And his father was leading it before he was.
Okay.
But his wife had written books about the fruit of her hands and homemaking being your holiest purpose. And listen, I am here to stand for anyone in any gender who wants to be a stay-at-home parent and
for sure.
wants, oh my God, I will support you with my whole soul. And please also support anyone else who that's not their biggest goal. So yes, I am seeing a swing back into this same purity culture. And it's really horrifying to me, especially when it comes to agency and autonomy and our right as human beings to self-determination and informed decision-making. This narrative that I had bought into, also was married at 21 to my first husband, also got divorced in my 30s. So a lot of weird similarities there. But mine was not fruitful. Right. I was absolutely raised in this culture and was signed, sealed, delivered. So when my husband became a raging alcoholic a couple weeks after my mom died, I didn't know I could leave. I had been so indoctrinated to believe that a woman's role was to support her husband and that the sins of my husband were not something that I could share with anyone else, literally from Doug Wilson's wife's book. I mean, it is, again, feels like this wild nightmare coming back here. And when I finally got into therapy after a decades-long marriage to this man, my therapist's first question to me was, why are you choosing to stay? And I literally had never been told I had a choice.
Wow. That's, I'm always talking about like, when you have these blinders on and these beliefs, you don't know that they're limiting you. You think that they're fact. Yes. And someone just told me, and I wrote it down because I thought it was so great, so I'm going to share it. Don't believe everything you think.
Yes. Yes.
Which
I want everyone, to let that sink in. That's good. It's really good. In school, we were taught this fascinating phrase. I used to believe, fill in the blank. And then I learned, fill in the blank, and now I think. I used to believe, and then I learned, and now I think. That it is a wonderful gift we have as human beings to learn new things and change our minds. These fixed ways of thinking, these fixed beliefs, these like stuck ones, which so much of religiosity, which is what I help so many clients move out of, that is their foundation, my friends, this is what we believe. It is part of their theology, and to each their own. I have clients who are deep, deep people of faith, and we work to help them still love their God and worship their God and have great sex. Sure. And yet so many of these things we have been taught to think and to believe come from archaic principles or poorly translated scripture. And it is okay to say, I used to believe and then I learned and now I think. I love that.
I love that too. That's so, so amazing. So I have a question. So do you think that this purity culture myth is running women that are in midlife? Or do you think it's just like a younger thing?
I'll tell you what I see.
Yeah,
I will share my everyday experience for my business that is bursting at the seams.
Right.
Yes to both of those. So I see many clients who you were talking of them so well, right? These women coming out of marriages.
Yeah.
So I also work with a divorced population very often. And it is women who were taught to believe one thing and tried really hard, as I did, really thought that this was a great way of doing things, that it was their duty to serve their husband in such a way and to provide and open their legs and cook and clean and do these things. So I see it affecting those humans. I truly do. I see women who thought they were to give sex to their husbands. A lot of women who thought they were to lay on their backs and give sex. So I see these people still in relationships.
Yeah.
I know it's heartbreaking, and or who have gotten out of them. Both. I worked with folks who have a good husband who never wanted that either, but their wife was getting different messaging in Bible study than he was getting, right? So I have that. And then, yes, I have this new wave of young people who are inside of perhaps an evangelical Christianity setting or inside some other religious space. And they are also hearing some of this new trad wife, new wave of purity culture messaging. And it's just as harmful. It really is. It's leading them to think that they'll use this word. I need a man to claim me. I need, a lot of this same, I'm like, guys, this is just a horse of a different color. This is the same rhetoric dressed up in a new outfit. And what it is reducing people in female bodies to usually is property. There's this fascinating journal article that I read called Good Sex and Religion, and I highly encourage anyone to go out there and look it up. It's available not just behind like gated walls and universities. Right. And it was written by 12 women who practice different faiths around the world, and they met once a quarter to discuss the role of faith and sex. And what they found was tradition, upheld purely for the sake of tradition, was harming not white men, was never going to harm white men, was always harming women or people of color or anyone who did not identify as heteronormative. And we are only perpetuating harm continuously if we cannot look at what is sex to be. And what they break it down to is, what does it look like for good sex to be defined as the language of my body oriented towards pleasure? And if it's not that, we should be questioning it.
Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you this, because I talk to a lot of women who they go on autopilot. Maybe they've been single forever and they feel like they've lost their desire, or they're just not. It's not important. You know, I hear a lot like, I love my life. Like, I don't want to be alone, but also that part of me is like not activated. How do you differentiate low desire from just not connected to a part of like who you are, or settling or coping, that kind of avoidance versus just, you know, a physical low desire challenge that they need to heal?
100%. Love this question. So I often say that when women come to me, whether partnered or unpartnered, and they say, I just don't want sex. I have no interest in sex. Solo sex, partnered sex, not here for it. I say, is it that you don't want sex, or is it that you don't want that sex? I think, again, back to our narratives of scripts. So many of us have a belief about what sex is. And I think it is far too narrow. So when I got out of that marriage to my ex-husband, who is now happily gay, gentle audience. So hilarious change of events. And after I got out of that relationship, I also was like, what do? Do I go sow my wild oats? Do I? And what now? And what I really came back to is, I don't even know how I define pleasure for myself. And what if we back it up a million steps? And so this is where I would start for someone like this, of what is pleasurable to you? Is it the feeling of your iced latte hitting the inside of your palm? Is it that smell when you step outside of the crisp fall air? Is it that moment when you lay your head down on the pillow and you feel the sensation of the sheet? Is it the sound of your dog running across the hall when you come home? What if we start with something that you specifically, individually find pleasurable? Nice. What if we throw out these ideas of what pleasure is to look like? And what if we come back home to you? So I like to say that we all have these core erotic themes, and they usually are attached to positive and peak sexual encounters or romantic experiences. And it is really fun to see how they're connected. And Dr. Jack Moran has these 4 cornerstones of eroticism, and I'd love to describe them.
Yeah,
they're
tell me.
Really fun. Okay, so I'd love for all of us to kind of think of a romantic encounter, a sexual encounter that still to this day sticks out in our mind. Just take a minute, take one, pick one. Usually it pops right into people's minds. Okay. Yeah. So I want you to think of this encounter. And now I want to explain these 4 cornerstones of eroticism. And I want you to think of which one or many were present.
Okay.
Number 1, anticipation and a longing. So was there this missing of someone? Was there this gradual buildup? Was this a long distance relationship? Was this someone that you were communicating with via email for a long time or via an app and then you finally met? Okay. Longing and anticipation. Was that present somewhere? Number 2, violating prohibitions. Was there some element of the naughtiness factor? For some of my clients who were raised inside of religious orthodoxy, their first time was behind the baptismal in their Southern Baptist church. Okay. So there was very much this idea of violating some prohibition.
Right.
Was there a little bit of exhibitionism? Was there, you shouldn't be, right? Were you sneaking out? Was it an affair? What was it? A violating prohibition? Maybe. Third one, search for power. Now, this is confusing to some people because they're like immediately go to BDSM or kink or something like this. That's not always the case. Maybe it was asserting power over, but maybe it was asserting power under. There was this element of surrender. Maybe this lover pushed you up against the wall just so gently and put their hand in your hair. And you felt, I can surrender here.
Right.
Okay. Search for power of some kind. Number 4, overcoming ambivalence. This is often the most confusing one to folks, so I love to explain it through my lens because this is my top erotic encounter, okay? So overcoming ambivalence feels like you're walking down the hallway in middle school and you just want your crush to notice you. Or it feels like how I existed inside of my partnership for a decade to being married to a gay man. Okay, so I had been conditioned from a young age that boys only wanted one thing. And so I looked for the boys who kind of didn't pay attention to me. They ignored me. I grew up in musical theater, so most of the young boys I was around were gay boys. And so I developed these really deep friendships with boys who didn't want me. It became one of my peak erotic turn-ons because it felt like an obstacle I had to overcome to get him to notice me. Many of us were raised with a parent who kind of didn't give us the time of day. And so we developed this obstacle to overcoming ambivalence. And it's a deep, deep turn on for more women than you can imagine. It is wild. So again, let me list them. We had longing and anticipation.
Yeah.
We had violating prohibitions. We had search for power and overcoming ambivalence.
And so that is what the science shows makes a peak sexual experience.
Encounter.
Okay, so I have to ask. So what do you do if you're like partnered up for like 20 years?
Right. So this is what's so fun.
How do you peak it out?
So you get to titrate. So what is so cool is that most of us have figured out by now that those things do make for really hot sexual encounters. They don't make for great relationships. So most of us chose a safe person, a good human, right? And then we get 20, 30 years into marriage and we're bored out of our minds. So what I encourage my clients to do is find out their core erotic themes through things like this. And then we go and titrate it back in. So now I have a healthy, wonderful partner who is anything but ambivalent towards me. So the way we utilize my chief cornerstone, which is again ambivalence, is if I'm in a horny mood and I'm like, hey, honey, what you doing later? Do you want to spend some time together after work? He will go like this, no lie. So for the audience who is not watching, I'm looking at my fake watch on my wrist. Okay. He'll go, babe, I really just don't have any time for you tonight. And then he'll just walk away. Now, this is our shared language of he is feigning ambivalence toward me. Right. And even though I know it's a game, friend, I will like start to crawl after him with desire.
Nice.
So many of us have lost curiosity in our long-term partnerships. I had a client earlier today. We were talking about this. She wants some element of surprise, some element of the unknown, and there is nothing wrong with that. So if your chief cornerstone was longing and anticipation, create a little distance. Go on a girls' trip. Send your guy off, right? Create some distance and space between you. Create a rule. You can't text at all during the day. Create a rule. Get a Google Voice number and only send dirty text through that one if violating prohibitions is yours. It is so fun to take your safe container of relationship and then say, how do we want to titrate in eroticism like this?
Love that. Okay, last thing. If your partner is interested and you're burned out, tired, all of those things, what is something that those women can start to do? Because they don't want to get into the, that obligation, like a woman's job is to, right? Like we don't want to do that. And people who are listening don't want to do that. So when that happens, how do you coach people out of that so that they can also be tired, but also like not have that be their default for like the next 20 years?
Great question. Great question. And again, was working on this with somebody else today. This is very, very common. What I encourage us to do is, first of all, if you haven't already, I would highly recommend the book Come Together by Emily Nagoski. It illustrates the long-lasting, successful sexual partnerships. And it looks like, what did these folks do that the rest of us don't do? One of the main things is these couples, A, can talk about sex, huge, and B, can help each other move into pleasure favorable emotional spaces.
Nice.
So I want everyone to think about their own erotic self as a blueprint. Think of a house, whatever house you want. All of us tend to, and you said this right off the bat, compartmentalize our lives. We live in usually pleasure adverse spaces. Sometimes it's panic and grief. Sometimes it's rage. Sometimes it's exhaustion. You are naming it. So I want you to think of your body as a house, and what room do you spend the most time in? And it's probably a pleasure adverse one, given the fact that you are probably a high functioning human out there listening to a podcast. You are probably that type of person. Now I want you to think of a pleasure favorable emotion. Is it when you're in a playful mindset that you like to experience pleasure? Is it if you're in a lusty mindset that you like to experience pleasure? Is it when you are being cared for that you like to experience pleasure? What types of emotional spaces are you usually in? Again, think back to your peak sexual encounters. What type of a space were you in? And that is going to become the room in your house that you need to get to. So now I want you to think of it as a board game, right? How do you need to move from your pleasure adverse emotional space to your pleasure favorable emotional space? And you get to make the roadmap. What do you need to move in and through to get to your pleasure favorable experience? Then once you have figured this out, you can share it with a partner.
Right.
So what I encourage my clients to do is not schedule sex, but create spaces to play. To schedule that so that they can share with a partner, this is what I'm going to need to be in that pleasure favorable space. For instance, I have a standing Sunday morning date with my partner. And I talk about sex all day, every day, Marty. All day, every day. So sometimes by Sunday morning, which is my day off, I work on Saturdays, I need space. So our whole space to play looks like this. It looks like coffee in bed. We have a carafe and a little tray and a tiny little creamer. It's so cute. It looks like Zillowing in bed. Zillowing allows myself to imagine life that I could live in my dreams. It is so fun. I look at the $60 million mansion in Malibu. I do whatever I want to with my partner, and we imagine just anything. Freedom, space. Then we play one of my favorite games in the world, which we don't have time to talk about today, but it's called the 3-minute game, and it's 2 questions. How do you want to be touched for 3 minutes? And then how do you want to touch me for 3 minutes? And it is so fun, and it puts me back in my body for me to even consider, am I interested in a sexual encounter? And am I able to receive pleasure in this moment? And if not, what else do I need now to get to that space? We get to take all that time. Most people in female bodies are not spontaneously desirous of their partner.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Most of us have responsive desire, and desire, in our case, follows arousal. So it is our right and our joy to figure out what we need to get to that space and then require it. There is no shame in that game. The only challenge can be communicating it, but you can do it.
I love this. This was so amazing. The name of the show, kids, is Life Check Yourself. And there's so many specific things that we heard today from Lauren that you have the ability to do. And it might be awkward and it might be uncomfortable. And that's why you're going to look at the links so that you can follow Lauren on Instagram. You also have lined up for us an opportunity for people to have a consult with you. Yes. So definitely take care of that while you can as a listener. And then also you have your partnership podcast so people can find out so much more about you. And if you're not listening on YouTube, you want to just have that consult so you can see your sexy background. Ladies, thank you so much for listening. Remember, whatever it is you do, it is always and in always your responsibility to life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Listen, if you're feeling stuck, I want you to know you're not alone, and you don't have to settle for it. I've created a free quiz to help you pinpoint what's draining your energy and exactly how you can fix it. So head over to decodeyourdestinyquiz.com and take the 60-second quiz right now. That's decodeyourdestinyquiz.com. And if you're ready to dive deeper, you can book a free no-obligation consultation at marnibatista.com/private coaching. That's Marni, M-A-R-N-I, Batista, B-A-T-T-I-S, as in Sam, T-A.com/private coaching, all one word. Let's take the first step to creating a life you love on your terms. I'm Marni, and I'll see you next time.